A number of major developments today in the Japan nuclear disaster. Today we learned that tens of thousands of people who were evacuated from the area near the Fukushima Daiichi power plant may not be allowed to go home for months. Beef, as well as chicken and pork, are being tested for radiation after reports of beef contamination. And check this out. Japan's prime minister said today that Tokyo Electric will pay for the nuclear disaster, but the government could foot some of the bill as well. So what if something like this happens in the United States? Who pays for the nuclear disaster in this country? We'll take a look at these numbers that we have here for you on the cost of a meltdown. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission here in the U.S. commissioned a study back in 1982 to determine the cost of a nuclear disaster. They estimated 50,000 deaths and $314 billion in property damage. Adjusting that amount for inflation brings us to the $720 billion that you see here in today's money. Now back in the 1950s, the government capped the liability for utility companies. That cap, adjusted for inflation over the years, is currently $12.6 billion. But I want to take you over here now to our chalkboard so we can compare those numbers. So we're saying that the cost is $720 billion, right? And then the utilities liability would actually be just $12.6 billion. So the difference, if you do the math, $707.4 billion. Well, who's going to pay that? Who do you think? All this great research comes from the folks at CNNmoney.com, and joining us now live from our New York studios is senior writer Steve Hargraves. Steve, who pays the difference?
Well, we would. The government has no emergency fund for this set up beyond the industry's $12.6 billion. So the taxpayers would have to pay it, and the government would have to go out and raise that money anew.
And let's talk about that $720 billion number. How accurate would you say that is? Because I understand there's a little bit of controversy behind it.
Right. Well, obviously, it's an old study. It's from 1982. The government has since backed away from that number. They say that they're working on a new study, and their new models show that any type of radiation release would be much slower and much less. They wouldn't give us a new number. They say their new study focuses more on the impacts of human health. But they did suggest that it will be much lower. Yet other outside experts have told us that $700 billion is in line with models that they've done.
And when you think about paying for this, a lot of folks are probably wondering about insurance. Does insurance cover a disaster like this one?
No, it doesn't. Any personal insurance you have, homeowners insurance, property insurance, that does not cover a nuclear disaster. The government specifically exempted that back in the 1950s when they set up this cap. So, you'd have to go and wait in line with everyone else. A lot of people that live within that 50-mile range that could see fallout in the event of a disaster, they're concerned about this. They're concerned that the government wouldn't step up and actually pay the full value for the property that could be damaged.
Well, really, it's a terrible scenario because even if you're lucky enough to survive this, you've probably lost your home, you've probably lost everything you own, your bank might have even been wiped out. So I'm wondering, is there a push for change here possibly to increase that cap for utility companies?
No, I haven't heard too many people calling for that. Some Democrat lawmakers would like to see it raised, but this liability cap was just approved just a couple of years ago for another 20 years. So people say it's fairly unlikely that it will be changed anytime soon.
Well, that is quite a bill for the taxpayers if we did see a nuclear meltdown or disaster like that one. Steve, thank you. Appreciate you breaking that down for us.
Thanks.